CPI came in hot today. CleanSpark is clinging to that $15 level. Bitfarms is still hanging out under $2. Bitcoin is hanging out just under $70,000. Let's take a look at some of these plays and some of the most important news right now. So CPI reports came in. The expectation, if we go to the economic calendar, was 0.3 increase for March and a 3.4 for the year. What did it actually come out to? According to the Wall Street Journal here, it actually rose by 0.4% in March and came to a total of 3.5% on an annual basis, which means that this report came in hot. And as a result, the pre-market did not like that. The pre-market was actually quite dramatic this morning. I'm glad that it has improved since then, but it's still not great. Let's take a look at what else is going on in the news today. We've got Michelle Bowman speaking, or Bauman, I'm not sure exactly how it's said, but that's the Fed that is speaking today at 8:45 a.m. East Coast time, which actually now has already passed. And I'm assuming that their speech wasn't too bad considering that prices have increased or improved since that speech actually came out. So, great. Not so bad. But we also have Goolsbee on the mic at 12:45. Then we have the FOMC meeting minutes at 2 p.m. And their monthly budget. These meeting minutes are going to be very telling. These could either tank us or launch us off, depending on what they say in there, how optimistic the Fed was in the last meeting behind closed doors regarding rate cuts coming in this year. Now, this report is not good for rate cuts. And let me see the CME Watch Tool. Let's see what the CME Watch Tool says now for the next meeting in terms of chances of getting a rate cut. I'm sure it's going to. Yep, so 4% chance of a rate cut in May. What about in June? June is now only a 19%. If you remember, before this was a coin, only down to 19%, a 1 in 5 chance. That's not great. How about July? July has gone down to just over 40% chance of a rate cut in July. So now July is worse than a coin flip for a rate cut when it was significantly better than that just a few days ago or a few weeks ago, or honestly a week ago. So now it's looking like September might be our earliest rate cut, and that would have to be when it begins if the Fed is going to get the 3 rate cuts that they mentioned in the last meeting. So they have to cut starting September if they are going to meet their goal of 3 cuts this year. Now, they may adjust that goal down to 1 or 2 cuts, but they are eventually going to have to cut. And one of the biggest reasons they are going to have to cut is because the federal government interest payments are ballooning and they can't afford it. And well, if the federal government were to were to default on loans, that would have a significant impact on price stability in the United States, which is a significant directive of the Fed. So they're going to need to, at some point, very soon likely, start bringing down those rates unless the federal government somehow gets, I don't know, figures some other way of lowering their debt load and their interest payments. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe they've got some rabbit to pull out of their hat. I can't say. But this is what it's looking like. It looks like September is now that day. Take a look at the margin debt. You can see here that this rally is probably going to continue because honestly, the margin debt has barely been crawling up at all. And if traders aren't leveraged, they can continue to get leveraged. Now, they're not incentivized to get leveraged right now because it looks like rate cuts aren't coming in and the Fed is still fighting inflation and things are honestly risky to a point where you don't necessarily want to be risk on as much as you could be, but margin debts are still low. Money market funds are still high until we see margin debt rise and money market funds lower. I think this will just be a bump on the road. So let's take a look at Bitcoin today. Bitcoin is down to 68,000, almost 68,000 flat. This is looking like a pair of tweezers from April 8th and April 9th here. If that turns out to be true, we're likely to come back down to that $64,000 range. Then this starts to look like a triple top. I don't love that. But if we break this ascending channel, this bigger ascending channel here, we already broke this small one, so that one's going to get deleted. We're re-entering this one here, probably going to look more like this. Let me just see here. Oh, it lines up almost like magic. There we go. we'll probably hang out in this one for a little while and move our way down. We might come back down to 64,000. Now we could be creating a pennant, which would look something like this, right? Something like this here and here. Could look something like that. And when this breaks either to the up or to the downside, it's going to be quite dramatic. I think with the halving so close to us, I think we may see a flash down, maybe even as low as 60,000 or potentially even down to 52,000 for a day or two. I think that could happen with the halving in terms of a sell the news event. Crypto loves to subvert your expectation. It loves to scare you pretty bad. Likes to shake things up in unexpected ways all of a sudden. Usually it retraces those pretty quick, but it likes to do that. So I wouldn't be surprised if I saw a flash down to 52,000 for like a day or an afternoon, sometime soon after the halving, and then soon after that, see it back up at like $100,000 within a week. I would not be surprised by that. So right now, Bitcoin is not looking great. So we made a new high, right? We made a new high. We need to stay above 64,500 in order to make a higher low. So we're currently in a higher low, higher high pattern right now that started back on March 19th. We are currently in that type of pattern as long as we stay above $64,500 on Bitcoin. And then after we stay above that, we go higher than 72,800 over here on the right. If we can do that, then we maintain the higher high, higher low pattern, and this is still bullish, and we continue to go up. If we break that pattern, things get bearish. That's all Bitcoin's telling us right now. CleanSpark is clinging to that $15 level this morning. In the pre-market, it was lower than this actually, but it went all the way down to 1458. I can tell you I was sweating a little bit this morning. We are stuck. Let me get rid of that one. We are stuck in the bottom half of this aggressive descending channel. If we cannot get above this blue midline on this descending channel, we are likely to come down to 1350 and probably $11 soon after if things do not improve on this stock very soon. Now, I'm pretty invested in CleanSpark. Of course, this is not a suggestion to buy, sell, or hold any asset whatsoever. So I am watching this closely. I want to see a bounce off this $15 level. If I do not see a bounce off this $15 level, I may start considering purchasing some like 2 to 3 month outputs, something for like end of July so that I can sell those in June at a profit. I might be looking at that here very soon if we break this $15 level. And by break, I mean have a close beneath this level. And then on tomorrow, if it opens up below $15, I'd be looking for that type of play to potentially protect some of my capital in CleanSpark. So, of course, not a suggestion to buy, sell, or hold any asset whatsoever. That's just what I'm thinking when I look at this chart. If it closes beneath $15 and then opens the next day also beneath $15, I would be thinking that we could potentially be coming down to $13, maybe even lower. So take a look at Bitfarms real quick. I mentioned Bitfarms in the intro, so let's talk about it. Bitfarms is at $1.97, so it is going to struggle here. The issue now is that this descending trend line, which I could draw a channel, but I'm just going to draw it as a trend line, it is getting more aggressive. The angle is getting steeper. If this does not start to taper, we are going to come down into this 180, maybe even 160 to 150 range on Bitfarms. So support is going to be, support, we're on resistance. Support is going to be around 182 down to 171. Below that, we can go all the way down to $1.24 on Bitfarms before we find support. That's not even strong support at $1.80. So this CEO search better start coming up with some results soon, and we better get some good news on some hash rate growth. They had an extra issue in Paraguay recently where they have pretty large part of their operation where the federal government there was talking about potentially banning Bitcoin mining. Of course, I don't think that was meant to impact Bitfarms specifically because they have a license there. They are, a legal miner in the country, and the crackdown was more speaking towards illegal mining operations, not like Bitfarms. But that did spook the market a little bit, and you could see that was part of this downward trend here, along with the CEO search. I think once they get a new CEO, and that person gives us a few months of proving that they're going to be executing on the plans that Bitfarms has, I think we'll start seeing this thing start coming back up. But right now we are going to struggle at this $2 level. I personally am accumulating more here because I do think Bitfarms will do well here after the halving. So I have been accumulating a little bit here under that $2 level. Like I'd like to say, if you thought Bitfarms looked good here at $3.89, and you don't think it looks good at $2, you're doing this wrong. So I do like it here at this price right now for my accumulation. Take a look at BitDigital real quick. What's BitDigital doing? They are also in a slightly more aggressive downward trend than they have been recently. The steepening of the trend line here, of the drop, that means that it is building up momentum in a bad way right now. So the trend, as it steepens, that means that things are getting more and more momentum towards either up or down. Right now, it looks like down is our move on BitDigital. It looks like this head and shoulders that I pointed out yesterday is likely to start playing out here, and that would take us down to about 210 or $2 on BitDigital when this little formation does finally bottom out, probably around $2. Let's take a look at Mara. Is it still hanging out around $20? No, it's not. It's not. It's breaking down. So Mara came down as low as 17.10, and now it's at just under $18. This again, we are sitting around resistance here. If it can't get up and over $18, we are likely looking at a come down to around $16, maybe as low as $15 on Mara here in the coming days. So that's not fantastic, but if you're looking to accumulate, these could be nice areas to accumulate pre-halving before things get bonkers. So let's take a look at RIOT. What is RIOT doing today? RIOT is actually up a little. It's flat. It's at $10 flat here. That's not so bad. It is resistance. You can see over here behind us, it is at the bottom of those candles and the bottom of the previous candles. This is resistance. So RIOT needs to get up and above $10. Otherwise, we are going to be coming down to the bottom of this little range here, this supply zone, which is all the way down at $8.81. We could go as low as that. And if 881 does not hold, we are going all the way down to $7 on RIOT. So pay attention to that. If we get over $10, we could be looking at a move up to about $11.50, potentially $12, but that's not what it looks like it wants to do. This is actually looking, it's also steepening the curve here a bit, but let's see. Let me draw this right here. Boop, and there we go. This is our descending channel right now. We are inside of it. We could go as high as 1046 and still be inside of that channel. We could go as low as $9.70 and still be in that channel until we break it to the up or the downside. We're just going to see a bit of this, weak sideways action on this stock. Let's take a look at the warrants. Cipher warrants, where are those at right now? So it's flattening out. This looks like a bear flag right here. This little box right here looks like a bear flag to me. We are broken beneath it, so that looks like confirmation. If it holds beneath this today and tomorrow, I'd be looking for this to come down to my strike price, potentially around 97 cents, which would be fantastic. I've got a buy order down there for like 1,000 shares of this thing, and then I would wait to around, June, July, potentially ride this back up to like $1.60, $1, maybe even $2 on this bad boy. So this is what I'm watching for Cipher. It could come as, honestly, it could come as low as about 80 cents on that sweep down. So maybe I'll lower that buy order. Maybe I'll do 500 around 97 cents and like another 500 around 82 cents, something like that. Actually, I think I will do that. Of course, this is not financial advice and not a suggestion to buy, sell, or hold any assets whatsoever. It's simply my own personal plan for my own personal portfolio. Okay, that's all I've got for the miners today. Let's take a look at some of our other plays. NVIDIA actually got a bit strong today. It opened up way down here at 836. It was looking so good to come down to my 823 level. I would love to see it happen, but we are currently above 860. That is going to be an area where I need to see it open and stay beneath for the first, half hour of the day in order to convince me that it is going to go down to 823. Notice how we came right up to the bottom of this big ascending channel and right up to the top of this descending channel today. Technical analysis is like magic sometimes. Anyways, as you can see yesterday, we went from the top of that channel all the way to the very, very bottom of it And I drew this beforehand, all the way to the bottom of it at 829, 830, and now it went right up, immediately stopped right at the top at 871 and is now kind of coming right back down. If we close beneath 860 again today, and we get an open below 860 tomorrow that holds for like that first half hour to 45 minutes of trading beneath 860, I would be looking for 823, potentially even 800 on NVIDIA tomorrow, especially if some of the Feds scare the market today as they have been. Notice how on NVIDIA though, this descending channel has not been getting more aggressive. It's been staying even. What does that tell me? That tells me that this is a controlled selling pattern. That means that this is profit taking. This isn't a frightened sell-off. This is a controlled sell-off. That tells me that when this ends, when this eventually ends, now there may be one big flush down, and I would watch for that. I would watch for that big flush down to 800, maybe even to down to like 700 or even the high 600s. That would only last a day or two, in my opinion. If we saw a big flush down, I would wait a day or two to see what happens there. And if it starts to reverse, that was the end of the selling. And we wouldn't get necessarily a blow off top. We'd get the reverse of a blow off top. We'd get a big red candle with a big wick on the bottom, followed by a blue candle the next day or the next, a couple of days later. And then we would be off to the races back up to $1,000. So right now I'm looking for that. Right now, this is very controlled. If this breaks to the upside, we're running for $1,000. If this breaks to the downside, we're looking at coming into the 700s, maybe even the high 600s for a couple of days, maybe a week. And then we'll be looking for a building of strength on NVIDIA, because once it does that and it starts to flatten out, it's going to be looking for $1,000 soon after that. So watch that on NVIDIA. This is getting exciting. I like this. This is fun. Let's take a look at Square right now. Square is actually, it's down 2% today. It looks green, but it's not. It opened lower than it currently is, so technically a green candle, but still negative on the day. This little formation here right now, if we get a gap down tomorrow on this is going to look like an island reversal where we would come down and come back into the low 70s before we find our supply in the low 70s or high 60s, and then reverse from there after the halving. That's what I'm looking at for Square right now. Of course, if this starts charging up and gets over that $80 level, preferably up over like $8 and $80.50, then we'd be looking for that little gap fill up to $81, $82, and potentially sideways motion all the way up to like $86 before we start getting into Bitcoin going bonkers, and then their balance sheet of Bitcoin will start factoring into their overall price action from there on for Square. So Block, excuse me, Block. I keep calling it Square. I'm sorry, it's Block. So right now I'm just kind of looking for sideways action or perhaps some downward movement on this stock until we get towards that area where Bitcoin starts making it look really good for that. This is also, yeah, basically just looking at the Bitcoin play on that. Let's take a look at Tesla. Tesla, it is down. It was up this morning, but now it is down. Look how Tesla is perfectly, for the last 3 days, has perfectly been playing inside of my ascending channel here. We went right up to the top of it, got rejected. We came all the way down to the bottom of it today. We are bouncing. This is just beautiful. This is fantastic. I am looking for a break of this ascending channel that'll take us back down to 160, or a break to the upside on this ascending channel that would show a greater momentum to the upside, which would eventually, I'm thinking, potentially make this a double bottom at 184 and then take us up to potentially 205 here in the coming months on Tesla if it breaks to the upside. Of course, if it breaks to the downside, I'm looking at 160, where I want to see strength in order to convince me that could be a triple bottom, or weakness where I'm expecting it to come even further down to about 145. Let's take a look at SOFI real quick, since I've been talking about all these. Let's talk about them all. SOFI is actually down 2.5%, 2.41% today. It is back inside of my ascending channel here. We are kind of sitting in a critical zone here. It came right back to that neckline for this inverse head and shoulders. It needs to hold above this. Of course, interest rates do play when they are high, play a negative role on SOFI. So because they are, technically a bank, they are they do lending, they are in student loans, which as you know, yesterday a plan came out about student loan forgiveness, which would hurt their stock and hurt their bottom line. So that's what's going on with SOFI right now. It's going to hang out in this area until And we're still just waiting on a lot of these. We're still just waiting for confirmation before these things get interesting. Last one of the day, Palantir. Look at all these drawings I got on here. Palantir is actually, it was down pretty bad actually in pre-market, and it's actually coming back up. It's only down almost 1% right now. So it is still hanging out in this flag pattern right here. It needs to either get up and above 23.32 to carry on up towards the $24 range, or come back down to 21.68 and break that to the downside. So we are just kind of watching. This is still a bear flag. It is still something that I am watching to see if it is going to either mark continuation to the downside, or if we see a reversal if we get up and above this 23.22 level on Palantir. So the last thing I want to mention is that at the end of the week, we do have some earnings reports from some of the bigger banks coming through. That's going to have a big effect on the market as well. The other thing I want to pay attention to right now is when the Bitcoin miners are reporting their earnings. Like for CleanSpark, for example, that is May 8th. For Mara, we're just going to do a couple for Mara. That is also May 8th. Let's take a look at BitDigital. BitDigital, that is actually sooner. That one's going to be April 25th when they report earnings for Q1. And then May 13th for Bitfarms. Let's take a look. What is RIOT? RIOT is a little further out. That is going to be May 8th as well. So when those numbers come out, I think we will see some more positivity coming into these stocks specifically, just because the numbers are looking like they're going to come out pretty good for Q1, unless it's a big upset, in which case we're going to have a bad time. So with that said, please like, comment, and subscribe, and have a profitable day.